I first got into coaching, I thought my age was this big limitation. And when someone brought it up to me that it was my superpower, like it was the exact thing that was going to allow me to help people because I have this open and just unbiased perspective. And so when I'm coaching with people, I can ask way better questions and stupider questions, but better questions that will actually prompt a better answer for them. And so much more to that. But it was the first time I realized that my idea of myself wasn't true.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. James, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation. We've known each other for a while now, and I think it's a really cool conversation. It's easy.
I know. I'm excited to have you on the other side of the podcasting microphone as a guest and not a host. You have an amazing podcast called You Can Too that has over 276 episodes to date. Congratulations. And not only that, but you were able to have high-profile guests like Hal Elrod, who I'm also familiar with, Chris Voss, Ken Honda, Andrew Bustamante. I was impressed. I saw Dr. DeMartini on your guest list, Seth Godin, and that's just a few of them there. So before we go any further, I would love for you to give some background on who is James Brackin IV and some key turning points in your life that brought you to where you are today.
Big question. Okay. So I'll try to really break it down. So my journey started really early on. Obviously, for most podcasts I go on, I'm the youngest guest that they ever have and ever will have. So I started my journey. I graduated high school. Before I even graduated, COVID was happening. I thought I was going to get into real estate, realized that wasn't a path for me. I became a life coach at 17 years old, which makes no sense to most people. Didn't make any sense to me. Didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I invested a hell of a lot of money into myself, knowing that the path that I was going down wasn't a path that I wanted. And I think for many people, they realize that, but often too late. And I realized that early on, luckily, because I lost some family growing up early in my life. Father and uncle both passed at 37 years old. I actually almost died when I was born as well. I don't know if you know that, but 5 blood transfusions, have a hole in my heart. Like the doctor had to guess to make sure that he didn't know if it was going to be the right blood type, but I was going to die either way, or I was going to die if he didn't give it to me. So kind of had to happen. So miracle, really, I'm here to be completely honest, and just went down this path of podcasting, coaching, and everything in between. But that's like a short synopsis.
Oh, wow. Even just that life story alone, I would imagine brings you to thankfulness every day.
Yeah. Overflowing with gratitude most days. Yeah.
Oh, I bet. And when you live in that state of gratitude, it's really hard to be cranky, grumpy, and upset when you have a constant state of gratitude. Well, so out of your life's challenges, so let's go a little bit deeper. Pick a hardest thing you had to overcome, and what were the small steps that helped you get started to overcome that thing?
All right. I'd say the first thing that comes to mind for me was when COVID happened, everyone was in isolation. And I think a lot of people, for the first time, they had to sit with themselves. And it was the first time for me that I really had to figure out that I didn't like myself. And I didn't accept myself unconditionally. And I think obviously most of us don't really accept ourselves unconditionally, but it was the first time I really realized that I wasn't okay with myself if I didn't achieve something, if I didn't do something, if I wasn't constantly moving. I couldn't sit with myself to be like, well, who are you really actually? And I don't think I really knew myself. And oftentimes, a lot of the time nowadays, I feel like I've lived 2 lives. And I feel like my second one started when I started to sit with myself and really ask myself the tough questions that I was really scared to ask. And when coaches started asking me those questions and bring more out of me that I really didn't see within myself. So I think I went through a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety and a lot of just mental problems when COVID was happening, because it really just had me sit with myself and dive through all of the trauma that I'd gone through throughout my childhood, and not knowing what I wanted to do. I thought my entire life was going to be baseball when I grew up. Like that's the only thing I really cared about. And then I tore my labrum when I was in high school and realized that I wasn't going to college for baseball anymore, because I'd never seen college as a path otherwise. But I think a lot of it was just investing in myself, taking the time to be with myself and ask myself the tough questions. And then also showing up every single day to give myself evidence of the person that I want to become, and to help show myself that I'm not the person that I thought I really was.
What were some of those tough questions that you asked yourself?
Simple questions that I think we just often don't think to ask. Like, what do I want is a question that I don't think people ask enough. One, and I think me and Hal Elrod actually talked about that, where he asked that every single day. Might have been him or someone else in the podcast, but asking yourself the question, what do I want every single day, to realign your actions with your priorities, is I think something that's huge, because we go through our lives not thinking, we just don't take enough time to really ask, what do I want? Because we're driven by
Mm,
desires that we're told we're supposed to want, like school or a specific job or a specific house at a certain age, like all the things that we're taught to want.
mhm,
And I think for me, one of the biggest questions that I asked myself was, what's the cost of not taking action? Because we
mm,
think of what happens if I take action and I fail. My thought was always, a lot of people passed away unexpected in my life early on. I need to think about what are the points that I need to think about of not doing the thing rather than doing the thing, failing at it, and then thinking about that. Because I think for most people, the worst case scenario is their current situation. Because if you were to take the risk that you're scared of taking, the place that you're going to end up is right back where you were prior. So you really have
mm.
nothing to lose. But that was a long answer for,
No,
and I
that's
think
all right.
people
It's a
go,
perfect no, it's a perfect answer because what's your thoughts on failure then? Because somebody listening to that is like, well, why should I take that chance? I'm afraid to fail.
"Mhm,
And failure is one of those things that pop up. It's like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm afraid to fail. How do you get beyond that fear of failure? What mindset hack to put failure in its place to allow you to move forward and take action?
yeah, there was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics from, I think, the 1960s when it first came out, and when I first read that book, it really made me think about the perspective I had on myself and the perspective that just
Mhm,
how I frame experiences, how I frame like, see failure as an example. I used to see failure as a hit to my self-image, a hit to who I was
mhm.
and the person that I thought I had to be, and if I failed, I was a failure, right? We often identify
Oh,
with
right, right,
those
right.
things.
Yeah.
For me, the mindset switch was failure is feedback. So if I'm seeing it as feedback, I'm going to search for it more because feedback is the exact thing that's going to help me improve. And so I'm going to actively seek failure, not like I want to fail, but I want to put myself in positions to where failure is an option because that means I'm taking risk and I'm putting myself in positions to grow. Like imposter syndrome, for example, people often ask me, how do you overcome imposter syndrome? You're 17 years old. How are you a life coach? You've
Right.
lived no life. The thing for me was, first off, I don't need the answers because if I had all the answers, I mean, I wouldn't be coaching anybody. I would have a perfect life like everyone else does.
Right.
But that's not the solution, right? I need to have the questions to bring out of people because they have the answers within themselves. And I think, yes, just so much of it is just reframing things and being able to seeing them from a different perspective and knowing that it can be useful for you. It doesn't have to be true. That was
Mhm,
something that I
mhm.
spoke with Derek Sivers about that it sticks to me to this day.
Mm. Yeah, I like that perspective, just reframing failure. While I was listening to you, I was thinking, well, we can start off failure as being something that's negative, and I'm like, no, you got to flip it to something that's positive. You can actually win from your failures. And it's the other thing that I pulled out that I love that you said is that failure doesn't define you.
Mhm.
That it's just something that happened to you. It's not the definition of who you are. I want to circle back around to what you want. And that question, what you want when you wake up each day and you ask that of yourself, that can be a very broad or very narrow question. How do you tackle that question each day? So, what do you do with that question in the morning in order to keep you focused?
Yeah, I think it depends on where I'm at because it can be
Mhm,
micro and it can be macro for sure. What do I want in the aspect of how I want to live my life? Because I don't really often think of I want to achieve this massive goal in my lifetime. Like I want to be an author, but if I don't become an author, that's perfectly fine to me. I don't even really see that as a goal right now. When I
mhm,
look macro, I look more so how do I want to feel, and day to day, I look more so and what do I need to do. So in the sense of most people live their life based off of wanting to achieve accomplishments or to be seen by other people in a certain way. I care more about how I feel about myself than how I am seen from other people. And so, in a macro perspective, I optimize for enjoyment more than I do for productivity, I guess you would say. And
mhm,
in the same sense of that, I also am more productive than I've ever been because I'm optimizing for enjoyment. Because I'm more
mhm,
intentional with what I'm doing with my day. If you're working 16 hours and you get to the end of the day feeling like you still have more to do, it's probably because you're working on the things that don't have much leverage. And so you need to work on different things. So in a macro perspective, I definitely look more of how do I want to feel? Like the I see the purpose of life for me is to enjoy the passage of time, obviously by impacting other people and doing things a part of that. But if you're not enjoying life, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, what's the point?
right,
Really wonder that because I just don't see value so much in how I'm seen by other people or having specific things. I used to think I wanted a home by 21, and now my tax guy is telling me I should get a house, and I'm like, I don't want to have a thing that I have to think about. Like, so
mm.
your goals change as you go on. So I think it's a difficult question to answer, but that's where I'm at right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. No. Well, what? I appreciate your answer. Let's take that path for a moment. Doing that thing that you really, really, really enjoy. The first thought that comes to mind is, well, it can't be something that's related to my work.
Mhm.
because work is just work, and it goes along that common thinking of I'll be happy when. I'll be
Mhm.
happy when I retire because the job that I've been doing for the last 30 years sucks. Somebody's listening to this going like, well, how's this kid doing something that he loves? It's enjoyment and it's also fulfilling and it's your life, right? My
Yeah, I'll
question.
I'll I'll answer how I'm, like, perceiving it. Well, there's a book called Die with Zero by Bill
Mhm.
Perkins.
I read it.
That's one of my favorite books, and that really reshaped my perspective
Mm,
on investing in experiences, say, for example. In a week from now, I'm going to Colombia for a week. Why? I want to. Like, there's no other reason other than I want to. Last year, I went to Costa Rica for 2 weeks by myself. This year, I'm gonna go to Colombia, and that's just the first trip that I have this year. I love travel, and I value travel, to a massive extent. And so I'm gonna prioritize that in my life and move work around it. And if that means that I work less while I'm traveling, that's fine with me. Because I think we don't see, say, travel or spending time with family or creating experiences like that as being productive. But like
mm,
that's productive in like the personal side of your life. So that is productive. So I think it really depends on how you see productivity and what you define as being productive. Because I went to hang out with a bunch of my friends this weekend. I define that as productive, even though it was at 8, 9 p.m. at night. So I think it really it depends on what you define as it, and I think it's really unlearning what you have seen productivity as, or what you think moving your career forward is, because it's not always about
mhm.
your career as well. I think that's a big thing. I would
Yeah.
say too, before you go, this is something that makes comes up for me. I've had a lot of people on the podcast, and almost every single person that is seemingly the happiest, the most just like you can just feel the expression of happiness coming out from them. They're in their 80s and their late 80s at that, and they're the happiest people that I've been able to speak to because they're still doing the thing that that lights them up. I spoke with Neil Donald Walsh 2 days or a couple days ago, who wrote the book Conversations with God. He's in his 80s, and I can just feel how excited he is to talk about the same thing he's able to talk about. So
Yeah.
retirement isn't something that I even look for, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how you define it. And like you said, serving people, helping people, doing something that lights you up. You mentioned your podcast. What are some other treasures that you've learned through podcasting and how have they affected you?
Man, I would say that surrounding myself with people that I have on the podcast has expanded my mind to how much opportunity there is in the world. When we're going through life and we're in our bubble and we're around the same people we're around all the time. I work from home, so I'm usually by myself most of the day unless I'm at a coffee shop or I'm traveling. And so it can be really isolating sometimes, and it can feel like just the day to day is just like every day kind of mixes into another. When I have a conversation with someone, I realized it was for me when after the conversation I have more energy than I did before it. And I'm seeing it time and time again where people will see something in me that they want me to work for them or work with them like after the podcast. And these are people that are 100 millionaires. Like I'm speaking with a billionaire tomorrow. And people just like there's so much opportunity out there. So I think when you're in different rooms surrounded by people that think bigger than you think, it challenges you to open your mind up to what's really possible, because I think most of us just think way too small. Like the
Yeah.
idea, what you said earlier about like having a job that you actually enjoy. Like there's a reason that these people keep grinding. Like of course there's some part of it that they're trying to achieve something that's in the future, but we're driven by progress. Tony Robbins talks so much about that. And I think if we're not striving towards something, I think we feel like we have no purpose in this earth. And I think just being surrounded by people that are really excited to impact and to have a mission in the world just inspires me to want to do that even more.
Yeah, yeah. You have interviewed some very interesting and amazing people, but you also have solo episodes and they focus on mindset and personal development. So I was flipping through and I came across episode 171 and it's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Mhm.
And I want to ask you about that episode. I want to ask you what prompted you to record that topic?
I think a lot of people are, let's use the example of it's 2025 now, and everyone's thinking about what they need to add into their life. They need to add more things. They need to add on different habits. They need to start going to the gym. They need to maybe think about moving to a different place, taking on a different job, whatever it is. My perspective with the podcast and with almost all of my life is, what do I need to subtract? Right? It's like just what I said with having a house. Like I used to think I want a house. I want multiple houses. Now I'm at this point, maybe it'll change, but now I'm at this point where I'm like, I just don't want to have the take up my mental capacity. I just
Mhm.
got rid of so much clothes with the new year. I'm trying to get rid of things and become a
Yeah.
minimalist. I've had the minimalist on my podcast, so it just like it's so funny I'm coming around to it now. But I think a lot of the time when we're thinking about where we want to get to that next level and whatever it is, it's our career, it's our family, whatever. we think about the things that we've done in the past that have got us to where we are. But if we're thinking about what we've done in the past to get where we are, that's not going to be the same thing that gets us from where we are to where we want to go. Otherwise, we already would have been there. And so instead of thinking about what do I need to add or what do I need to do, what do you need to let go of? What are the things you need to stop doing? And what are they going to open up for you to take and spend more time on that could actually allow you to get there? But I think a lot of the time we're relying on consistency. We're relying on things that we feel are right. They feel productive, and to some extent they are, but they're not creating leverage for us in the long run in life. And so if we're continuously doing what we're doing, we're going to get exactly what we've
Mm.
been getting.
How did you find the things that you need to subtract out of your life, even though, like you mentioned, that they might feel productive because they're things we're doing every day? What are some things you did to find those even though they might be deemed productive, those things that you needed to subtract? What questions did you ask, or how did you go after those?
Yeah. I'd say first off, I definitely would ask my coach, like ask him what questions am I not asking myself? What things am I not focusing on enough? Because at the end of the day, like the things that are most obvious to other people are the things that are least obvious to us. And it's so difficult. And so we have to get someone outside of us to help us see things that we can't see in ourselves. Because when we're so close to our problems, we're consumed by them. And so we can't really see a path past them. And then another thing that really helped, I had a Mike McAllowitz who wrote Profit First on my podcast last year. And he spoke about how you're not really running a business unless you can go away from your business for an entire month. And when he brought that up, it made me think about all the things that I'm doing right now that I still need to do that would not allow me to take a month away. And so if you think about that in your own life, what are the things
Mm,
that you're doing right now that are taking up so much time that don't actually equate to much value? Another person I had on the podcast was Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who I absolutely admire his work so deeply.
I do too.
And it's amazing, great person. And he wrote a book called 10X is Easier Than 2X last
Yes.
year. And
Mhm.
so many questions from that book, as you could probably see,
Yep.
are just massive. And I think they're simple questions, but it really takes a long time to actually be intentional and thoughtful about what those answers really are. But yeah, I would say a lot of questions from that book was really helpful as well.
Yeah, yeah, I like Ben Hardy. Yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff there. I have a curious question for you. What's something that very few people agree with you on?
I don't know if it's necessarily that people wouldn't agree with me on it, but it's something that I am probably a bit annoying about most days. When someone will speak to me and they're using limiting language, I call them out immediately. Someone said I should do something the other day, and I was like, haha, no, I don't should myself. Like, I'm never going to place should on myself. It happened. Whatever happened, happened. And a lot of people say, like, it's simple, but using the word can't or using the word I'm going to try to, it's like when as soon as you say try, you have one foot in, one foot out. You're not actually
Mhm,
going to try. If you tell yourself you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So just using limiting language in every day and then not really seeing the value of how important and how much of an impact that has on your life. I
mhm.
don't think people just really think enough about the words that they're using, but it is carving the actions that they're taking or the inactions that they're not taking.
Yeah, that's funny. I was saying to a friend this morning, they said, "Oh, I'm gonna try and do this." And I said, "Wait a minute, there is no try.
Nope.
You either do it or you don't." So I think of that Yoda saying, "Do or do not. There is no try."
Yeah.
And that's you're right. When you just it change the language and you speak that truth to yourself, it really does make a difference. It
Mhm.
really does. It's empowering to what we don't realize that our words are critical currency and that we can use them to put deposits into ourselves and others, or we can
Mhm.
use it to subtract from others that are around us. So, yeah, I mean, so going down the same word route, before we hit record, we were talking about the word regret.
Mhm.
And you were talking about how gratefulness, you're grateful for the year. Let's go down that path for a minute because we started a very interesting conversation about regret and about thankfulness. So, your thoughts there?
I would say that a mindset that I took on probably last year, and it's has only gotten stronger this year, is that everything is unfolding exactly how it's supposed to. Like life is unfolding, like everything is happening exactly how it's supposed to. And whether it's true or it's not true, that belief is helpful for me. And if that belief is helpful for me, I'm going to take actions based off that belief. And so I think a lot of people, they live in regret, they live in fear, they live in anxiety, they live in the past or even the future too, thinking about what they should be doing right now to create that future, but they're not doing it and they're beating themselves up about it. We do that all the time where we say we want to do something, but our actions don't reflect it. It's a difficult thing, and I think a lot of us fight with ourselves in that extent. But I think choosing beliefs that are helpful and conductive for your growth is what's helpful for me. And that belief has been more helpful than anything.
Yeah, the belief that things are happening for you, not to you. And
Mm,
I found that in my own life as well. The last couple months, even though I've walked through some difficult circumstances, I've still have this theme of gratitude. And when you live in a state of gratitude, it's very challenging. It's very difficult to be depressed
yeah.
or be very sad for long periods of time. I mean, I'm not discounting the emotion. I'm just saying I don't live there for long periods of time. And then for regret, what, like you said, if you keep that mindset of things are happening for me, not to me, and things happen, like I said, exactly the way they should be, then regret just can't creep in because regret can't live in the same space as this happened for me for a reason. I'll take it one step further, everything's 100% our choice, and some may or may disagree with that, but it's 100% our choice. We have a 100% choice in our reactions, in what we say and what we do, but those things happening to us, we can't regret them because they happen exactly the way they are supposed to be if you hold that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard belief to take on because once you take it
Sure.
on, then you take responsibility. And that's the core that we want to avoid, right? I I can, like, talk about so many different conversations I've had that I can say, like, "Well, I was talking about this person about this," and so many things are coming up for me as we're having this conversation, but,
Oh, pick one, fine.
um, I was speaking with a one of the top 1% cited scientists in the world earlier this year. I'm blanking on his name right now, but, from Colombia, and we were speaking about resilience and trauma, and I think a lot of people don't think enough about how the story that we tell ourselves about the experience almost has a
Mhm,
bigger impact than the actual experience in itself. And so going to regret or going to whatever is happening, if we're in the moment and we're saying, "This is so bad, this sucks, this is terrible, this is gonna unfold so badly, like, I I just lost my job," or "This is happening," whatever it is, if you keep telling yourself that story, I'm telling you that that experience is going to get worse and worse and worse
mhm,
because that story is reinforcing what is already happening. And so I think a lot of the time we don't really give ourselves enough credit about how resilient we are as humans. And he speaks about that in the science. But I think our automatic response is to be resilient as humans. But when we tell ourselves a disempowering story, that resilience just decreases and decreases as our days and the experiences go on. And so if we have a positive mindset towards our life and towards the things that happen to us, even if they feel like they're happening to our worst interest in the moment, I
mhm,
think assuming positive intent and looking for what we're looking for what we want to gain from it and looking what we can gain from it. Our life is based on our focus, and if we're focused on the things that we don't want to happen or what is not happening, right? We're gonna get more of that in our life, and we're gonna
mhm.
seek more of it. And so I think it's just you're right, like you said, it's a choice of what we
Yeah.
focus on.
How do you stay focused when something negative is coming your way or with something how do you maintain your positive focus?
Two things are really helpful for me. Number one is taking gratitude walks, and whether I'm praying on that walk or I'm being grateful for all the things that are happening or how I feel, whatever it is, I can be grateful about this conversation after we hop off. This morning, I was literally saying how grateful I am to have this conversation with you. Thinking about the things that I can be grateful for, the thinking about the things that are going right in my life always is something amazing. And I would say I've been doing a visualization meditation for probably 4 years, Joe Dispenza, and that has stuck with me for so long. And just practicing, like, emotionally feeling how I want to feel has done more good for me than almost anything in my life because it reminds me that I can always go back to that home that's within me, that I don't need anything to happen externally for me to feel
Mhm,
better. I don't need anything to spark something within me to feel better about myself or to feel better about where I am, regardless of what is happening. And I think a lot of the time we think that we need something outside of us to spark that feeling that we want to feel. We have to achieve something to say that I'm good enough. We have to do something to feel good. But I think a lot of the time we have to remind ourselves that we have all of those feelings within us. We just have to remind ourselves that we felt that before and we have at any moment in time the privilege and the opportunity to feel that, but we have to practice it. And so emotionally preparing myself for the gratitude and the excitement and the ways that I want to feel has been so amazing for me before podcasts, before anything
mhm.
that's happening in my life.
How do you emotionally prepare for yourself? That sounds really good in theory.
Yeah.
How can we move that from theory to practice if somebody's never done something like that before to actually find that satisfaction within themselves rather than running to the external?
I would say that it's a difficult thing, but when I was in Costa Rica last year, I'll give you a great example. I was on a bus like 3 hours from where I was staying. I was in Jaco going back to San Jose. And it was about, like I said, about 3.5 hour. It was so hot. I'm sitting next to someone, like, and the seat is very small. I'm frustrated and I just want to get out of this bus. I don't even have a drink. Like, I'm so thirsty. I just want to get back. And I'm sitting there frustrated and annoyed with the experience that I'm having when I remind myself that, hey, like, I can choose how I feel about this. And so I close my eyes and I think about, how do I want to feel? How does it feel when I am excited? What's the last experience that I had that really made me grateful? The fact that I can do this right now. It was probably a Tuesday or something, and other people are at work right now, and I'm on a bus right now, and I'm complaining about being on a bus right now. Well, like, I have a choice, like you said earlier. It's
Mm.
100% our choice, and so choosing to feel that, and I think just reminding yourself that there's been moments in your life. If you're feeling doubt, for example, and you're feeling doubt right now about whatever's happening in your life, there's been moments in your past where you have felt like you have all of the belief in the world. And so trying to remind yourself, bring you back to that state and reminding yourself that you have the choice to feel that right now. Nothing has to happen for you to feel that. And I think practicing it over and over again, it almost becomes this experience as though in manifestation, in a sense of, I've already been there. I went to Hawaii for about 4 months. I lived in Hawaii for 4 months last year. And I wholeheartedly believe I manifested that, because it fell into my life, the opportunity, and I was able to go there, and I practiced emotionally feeling as though I was in Hawaii before I went there years ago. And I still to this day feel like it happened so quick, but I emotionally prepared myself for it. So when the opportunity came up, I said yes. And
Mm.
so, but yeah, that's a long answer.
That's okay. It's a perfect answer. The manifestation part I can definitely relate to because I also manifested something that I didn't think was going to happen, and then that opportunity came out of nowhere, presented itself. It was a tremendous opportunity and learning experience. So, all that to be said, be careful what you manifest
Yes.
and wish for because it can happen, and good or bad. But I tend to be like you. I'm going to manifest those things that are positive in our life. So, that's a great segue into my next question. So what's your vision or goals for this year? What's something that you'd like to see happen big in 2025?
I'm gonna be doing some in-person interviews. I actually am in the process of getting my first one booked in a few weeks from now, which is
Yes.
awesome. I have a bunch of travel going on. I just booked my flight to Peru, a few one way, just going there and not decide, like, don't know how long I'm gonna be, don't know where I'm gonna go after, just excited and just expanding just the things that are happening in my life. I've said yes to every opportunity that has come into my life, almost every opportunity that's come.
Mm,
And life is unfolding, like I said earlier, exactly how it's supposed to. And so I don't really have any exactly, like, I have goals and I have different things I want to do and different places I want to go and annual goals of like income that I want to have and all this different kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm just letting life unfold exactly how it's supposed to. And everything that's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm going to
mm,
embrace it as it is. And
mm.
I've really taken on that last year of just not being so overly focused on where I want to be in 3 years from now, or what do I want this to happen, and just letting things unfold exactly how they're supposed to, and trusting that when the right opportunity comes up or when something happens that I feel emotionally aligned with, I'm going to take the leap and life's going to unfold exactly how it's supposed to.
What's your advice to somebody who's struggling to let life unfold just the way it is?
I'd say that the challenge for people when it comes to that, or at least the challenge that I faced with, was I wanted things to happen, but I wasn't actually putting in the work to make them happen. So if you're not putting in the work, like, life is gonna unfold exactly how it's supposed to, in the sense that if you're looking for what you want, you'll see it. But if you're looking for what you don't want, if you're looking for the bad that's happening, you're not gonna see the opportunities that are walking past you every single day. And you're not even gonna be the one that puts yourself out there to create those opportunities.
Mm,
Give you example of the podcast. I've had, as you said, so many exceptional people on the podcast, and some of the dream guests I've wanted for so long have already come on, and I'm so grateful for that. But I had the tenacity to ask. And for most people, when they ask me, how'd you get this person on? And then I show them that it was 12 months of following up with Chris Voss's team to get him on the podcast. You see that the work is showing up and it's unfolding how it's supposed to, because I'm also playing a role in that. And so I
mm,
think a lot of the time we just want things to happen. Like we were talking about manifestation. It's like, oh, things just are just supposed to happen. Like, I just feel like I want to go to Hawaii and it's going to happen. And it's like, no, you put yourself in positions to be around people where that opportunity is more likely to happen. And so I think just asking yourself, what role am I playing in this? Or what role am I not playing in this? Will really open up some hard truths that you probably don't want to accept. And that's why you're putting them off.
I always like to ask my guests the same 3 questions. So the first is share a book or resource that's had an significant impact on you.
I have so many and I say the same ones, but I'll say one that I wouldn't say has a significant impact on me, but it's the one book that I truly believe to my core. If you're an adult in the world, you can't consider yourself an adult until you've read the book. The book
Okay.
is Awareness by Anthony DeMello, and it's so short. I listened to the audiobook of it and on Audible, and it's pretty much just a convolution of all of his lectures. So it's not even really a book, it's him speaking. You can hear the people laugh in the background, but I think that book is really big because most people are just not aware.
What was your big takeaway from that besides becoming aware?
I think wasn't anything specific. I just think that, like, the the first step to making change in our life is realizing that we don't actually wanna make change. That was something in the first chapter that I really
Mm,
stuck with me. Because if we think about it, if we wanted change as much as we say we wanted change, we'd be doing the work every single day to make the change. But a lot of the
wow.
time, we are the one thing that is the biggest block to us making our change. And so that belief was a really big just awareness
Yeah.
in a sense, and there was a lot of them.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. So, second question, what is one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
I don't know. I love talking about limiting language. I think our beliefs and how what we tell ourselves is really massive, and it's like the core of the podcast and my podcast in so many ways. Of we just tell ourselves limiting stories,
Mhm,
and we have this narrative about ourselves that we believe to be true. And I think just the core of whatever you tell yourself or whatever you believe about yourself is always absolutely always not true, and it can't be true because if you have a belief about something, it's like the belief in God is in itself the idea of trying to see is this kind of person is almost going to be the thing that limits you from actually experiencing faith because the conceptualization of it decreases the emotional felt experience of it, if that makes sense in a sense. And so
mhm.
I think our beliefs also go hand in hand with that, and just understanding that whatever you believe to be true about yourself is never true.
Wow, that's interesting. Believing whatever you believe about yourself is probably not true. So that might be a tough statement for some to swallow,
Yeah.
because if you think about that a minute, I believe I'm a great person.
Hmm.
Take that for a second. If I believe that to be true about myself, then is it really true?
I think of it in a sense of whatever we tell ourselves, the idea behind it is whatever we tell ourselves is a story at the end of the day.
Mm,
And so we
okay.
can believe that to be true. And you may have evidence to believe that's true. But at the end
Mhm.
of the day, it's a story. Someone else might have a completely different perspective of
Oh,
you.
that's true.
Right? So like that could be true for you. It's your truth, but it's not someone else's truth. The reason I say that is the first time I realized that I had like an unlimited amount of potential was someone said something to me that I didn't see in myself. And it was the first time I because I saw myself as this unconfident person. Good.
So what they say?
Just that that my age wasn't a limitation when it came to
Mm,
coaching. When I first got into coaching, I thought my age was this big limitation. And when someone brought it up to me that it was my superpower, like it was the exact thing that was going to allow me to help people because I have this open and just unbiased perspective. And so when I'm coaching with people, I can ask way better questions and stupider questions, but better questions that will actually prompt a better answer for them. And so much more to that. But it was the first time I realized that my idea of myself wasn't true. That this idea of this unconfident person that didn't have potential, that was depressed and anxious and all of this different kind
mhm,
of stuff, all of the things that I was telling myself, it wasn't true. And so understanding that whatever you believe to be true about yourself is always a story. It may be true, but it
mhm.
also may be someone else's false.
So you have to look at your story, the story that you're really telling yourself. Like if you tell yourself, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm whatever, the brain doesn't know the difference between fiction and reality.
Hmm.
And I don't say that like that's just something I think is true. That actually is proven. There's a science behind that. So what you tell yourself really does matter. So don't tell yourself you're stupid. Maybe the thing you did was stupid, but let's be more careful about how you describe yourself. And that goes back to our conversation about failure too, right?
Hmm.
You are not a fail. I am not a failure. What I did failed, but that's okay. It's just an opportunity to learn. So yeah, it's a good point. As we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
I would say just doing one thing that you told yourself you were going to do last week.
That was the shortest answer I think I've
I
ever
know.
gotten. That's great.
There's 1,000 different things that come up for me, but, like, at the end of the day, if you
Yeah.
want one small actionable step, it's like, do the thing that you told yourself that you would do, and give yourself some
Yeah.
evidence of the person you wanna be.
Yeah, right. And then if you don't do that thing you said you were going to do, then it's a question of integrity. So why don't you uphold the integrity in yourself and then, go ahead and do that thing. So yeah, I love it. Well, is there anything you want to leave my audience with?
There's nothing that comes up immediately. I would say that just the reminder that what we said is the whole idea of this podcast, what we've been talking about, like just take on that belief that everything is happening exactly how it's supposed to, because I think that belief is so helpful for so much anxiety and fear that people are living in, especially nowadays with everything that has happened in the few days of this new year already. Like so
Mhm.
many terrible things going on.
Mm.
But if we got to choose what we look at, and I think that that's something that'll be really helpful.
James, how can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. James Brackin IV on all platforms, on YouTube as well, where I mainly go for my podcast. You Can Too podcast on all platforms, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, James. Thank you for the gift of your time. I have so enjoyed our conversation.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.